And welcome everyone this morning to getting students ready for in-demand jobs. This is a session that's probably, it's been some long time coming, and thank you, Sam, for having us. But we're part of the consortium this summer. We have some great data and some information to share that honestly we've known about for some years, and we've been holding it for some time. But now is the time that's even more greater to have this information shared with influencers like yourselves who are connected with students every day. My name is Guy Curtis. I'm the Director of Marketing for Workforce Solutions at Lord Fairfax. And our department serves the professional development and continuing education portion of the college. So a lot of the offerings we have are for non-credit and for workforce training, for corporate training and employers. So wanted to welcome you, and I would like to also introduce Julia.
Hi, my name is Julia Bridgen, and I am the workforce coach with Workforce Solutions at Lord Fairfax Community College. And to kick it off today, we just want to ask a quick open-ended question to kind of get your brains going. So if you are feeling brave, feel free to unmute yourself or answer in the chat. But we would like to know if anybody knows the difference between a credential and a certificate. No guesses? Okay, that's totally fine, because by the end of this presentation, hopefully you'll be an expert. So a certificate is awarded after someone completes like a workshop or a course or a program. And a credential is awarded after someone completes a certification exam. So I guess a great way to put it is, to become a teacher, you have to have like your degree, right? So you have your degree, which is your certificate saying you have completed so many classes, this program, you have the knowledge. And then your teaching license is your credential saying that you have taken this exam and you know what you're talking about, and that you're supposed to be teaching in the state of Virginia. And the importance of these is going to come up throughout the presentation.
All right, so a little bit about today's agenda. We're going to get into those differences, as Julia mentioned. Also, we're going to talk about sevens. So this is a number that's been around for a while when it comes to the workplace and who are the sevens and why we need them. Also, too, we want to possibly share a few personal stories, and maybe perhaps myself get into considering all options. And we're thinking about going to college, starting a career. We just want to express whoever the individual you are speaking with, whether it's a parent, family member of a student themselves, they should really consider all options when going to look at career options and so forth. Also, we'll get into some recommendations and resources that we have at the college, as well as resources you can get into as professionals. And then we're hopefully open up for discussion and questions, because really we're here today to engage you as an audience so we can help better understand how to reach students, how to reach the parents and family members who are considering careers and getting into training within our region. So to give you more background about the sevens, there was a report that was done by the Virginia Community College System probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still very relevant to today. The report that the VCCS put out there was around the middle skills class, and really middle skills, not really the class level. There's a misalignment when it comes to the ratio of the workplace when it comes to degrees and certificates and skills. And so to kind of go more into that, these middle skills jobs that are across Virginia at the time was identified as over 175,000 different jobs that are being left unfilled throughout Virginia. Typically, many of them take 26 days to fill. So there's a lot of time that, for example, Virginia is potentially missing out on income and wages from those positions that are being left unfilled. So there's a lot of opportunity Virginia is looking to do. And so Virginia itself is really trying to figure out ways to incentivize and increase interest in these middle skills areas. And so to talk more about that balance, I mentioned the workplace. And so who are the sevens and why are they so important? So if we think about it, we have plenty of individuals out there, the number ones that are out there as far as a workplace. If you look at any kind of industry, any situation, in most cases, It's really easy to look at a healthcare setting, for example. We have a number of advanced degree holders, graduate, doctorate, whatever it might be. We got plenty of them. We have plenty of the number ones. When it comes down to the number twos, we have a ton of those as well. Those with the bachelor's degrees, engineers, accountants, HR managers, operations managers. There's plenty of degree holders out there in the bachelor's area. But the real issue that we have in Virginia, not only Virginia, but the nation, is the sevens. It's those advanced skill sets that we're looking to fill, whether they're a commercial driver, HVAC technician, electrician, welder, plumber, medical assistant, IT support specialist, you name it. We are missing the sevens when it comes to the jobs, not only just in our region of the Lower Fairfax area, but also Virginia and the nation itself. And so what are some of these jobs in the sevens? And this is where we're getting into jobs in demand that really students really need to understand. So if you think about it and look at some of these wages here are some of the sevens that the state of Virginia needs, and certainly in our region, they're very high. And so when it comes down to it, these are great salaries, and there's positions out there being left unfilled, and the demand is always ever increasing because of a number of reasons, whether it's IT, construction trades, healthcare, manufacturing. These positions are always in need within our region because of the way that Virginia is developing, the growth of our region, you name it. And so here's a great example of those sevens, and they pay pretty well too. So a poll question: what is the most in demand credential within our region? And so we want to drop a poll question out there to get the audience thinking. There we go. We got the poll up. So hoping to have everyone participate. What you might think is the best guess of the most in-demand job credential in our region.
All right, fantastic. Looks like everyone has voted. So for those of you who answered commercial driver, you are correct. That is our most demanded credential in the region. However, all of these are in such a high demand. It's kind of an unfair question, I guess. But all of these jobs are in super high demand within our region.
Yeah, especially too the software developer, and Sam from our team would be glad to hear that we are promoting software development as another high demand, especially recently too, after the pandemic and all the software and technology needs of our region. Software developer is another hot demand position in our region. All right, so just kind of a quick snap. We talked a little bit about these already, but a few of them that are in demand within our region. And so there's always a need for truck drivers, certainly because of the logistics and the Amazons and Walmarts and you name it, always sending products up and down our interstate and across the country, and of course the state of Virginia. But there's always still a need in those major areas: healthcare, IT, construction trades, advanced manufacturing, and certainly the transportation area. So thinking through the reason why we're kind of identifying some of these opportunities to have you rethink, and hopefully have students rethink the possible opportunities when it comes to their career planning and education and the consideration of getting into careers. And so what does this mean? 50 to 65% of these new jobs that are out there don't require a degree. And so this is probably the big paradigm shift in thought today as far as discussion. Many of the in-demand jobs within our region do not require a degree. However, they require some sort of high school diploma and graduation at some point. But the key piece that those individuals have is a credential or some form of certification to recognize that they have the skills employers are looking for. So what is a credential? Some of you weren't quite sure, didn't answer to credential. It's really something that demonstrates by industry for industry the skill set an individual has. And so there's a number of examples out there across multiple industries and what they do. But essentially, there's a tremendous amount of benefit for the individual as well as the employer when it comes to identifying that skill set you have as a credential. And so to get into a little bit about what a credential does as benefits, job seekers that are looking for opportunities, they're very affordable. Credentials you typically don't take a lot of time and effort and cost to getting into them. They could be obtained in a short period of time, so weeks, and not necessarily years to attain them. And also, they're very stackable. And we'll give an example too a little bit later. But when you get a degree with a credential, like many of you who are teaching and working with students, you have your degree and you also have your teaching license. And so that's a stackable way to make yourself more marketable. An awesome story that we hear so often too, as well, is that getting a credential for a job seeker is one of the fastest way out of poverty too. We have an awesome story on our website now that's of a single mother who was homeless, and when she got her credential, she was able to afford rent and food for her son, and find her way quickly into a career path that was going to propel herself into more meaningful wages for herself and her son. So hearing individuals of those stories and those examples, hearing the fastest way out of poverty, getting a credential does that. On the flip side, employers, once they start to see this exact skill sets applicants have, it really helps them reduce the cost of recruitment and finding that talent that they need. So often today, we still hear many employers saying we have so many jobs available and we can't find the right candidates for it. And because those candidates don't have the skill set, or I'd say the credential identified, it makes it so challenging for them to find the right workforce they're looking for. Additionally, employers know that these skills are industry approved and trustworthy, and so they're usually validated at a very high level across multiple industries in some cases, and they're very trustworthy for them that they can see. An additional aspect too, as well, for the employers, is that it's very relevant and it's responsive to the industry. And so as skills increase, technology increases, and demand increases, those skills and those credentials are always refreshed with the latest skills and abilities and learning when it comes down to that specific industry or career area. So another key piece too in mindset, degrees and credentials are not mutually exclusive. They work hand in hand. And so there's a lot of examples out there. I mentioned the teaching license and being out there as a teaching and working professional. Well, here's another example. For example, project management professional. It's another example of a credential tied to a master's degree that makes individuals by far more marketable and employable, especially in the government sector. For example, having your PMP coupled with 7,500 hours of leading and managing projects and going through coursework in some level of form, that validates their ability to lead and manage projects. So having your PMP coupled with a master's degree, they work hand in hand together. And so there's a lot of benefits out there. There's another one example, a credential possibly by itself on its own is our AWS certification. It's American Welding Society certification. It shows that the individual has the specific welding technique and skill they've learned and mastered through a number of different tests. So depending on the metal they're working with, whatever it is, if the employer can see that certification, that credential, it helps them validate that candidacy for a job.
All right, so we're going to ask another poll question, and it is, who should earn a credential? All right, fantastic. So the vast majority of you voted everyone, and that is correct. Credentials are for everybody. They're not just for people who are job seeking. They're not just for people who are currently employed. We have such a variety of students. I think that there's this stigma about short-term credential training and trades, that they're for people who are not ready for college or not college bound, or that's just not the case anymore. Everybody should earn a credential. I've seen people who come back and, they want to make a job change. I've seen people say, oh, I just want something to do after I retire. And then of course, we also have high school students who are coming out and they're like, I just spent all this time in school for 13 years and I don't really want to go to college for 2 years or 4 years, but I know that I need to work and earn a sustainable wage. So earning a credential is a great way for that. And it's no longer just like plan B or C. It can be either plan A, if that's all that somebody wants, or it can be a piece of plan A.
We had a quick question about ASC certifications for mechanics, and I'm not quite sure I know that one specifically, but if you have a certification, sometimes it comes with a credential coupled with it. So you have to look at exactly what that individual's receiving. I'm not sure, Julie, if you have any other thoughts behind that or if you know that one specifically, but in many cases, certifications or a program to be certified also comes coupled with a national credential tied to it. So that could be the case for that specific one. I'm not exactly sure, but at least I know ASC and mechanics, I think that does demonstrate certainly a skill level that's achieved too.
Yeah, I don't know much about that specific one, but another one like that is like CPR. So like you take a CPR class and at the end of it, like you receive the certificate, but you also have that credential saying that you're certified to perform CPR. So I'm guessing it's probably about the same, but again, I don't know a ton about ASC, excuse me.
All right, so we want to get into a little bit about a pathway, for example, and how credentials work within a pathway. We talk about how they're stackable and help individuals. And so I always pick on nursing because it's an example here at the college where we have so many applicants that come to the college each year looking to get into the nursing program. And perhaps they learn from a friend, family member, or advising, whatever it might be, that they want to become a nurse. There's usually one or two ways to do it. I have to get a degree and go forward from there. However, credentials in a lot of cases will help an individual jumpstart their career quickly into a pathway. One, two, to find out if they even like the healthcare pathway, for example, or getting into that industry, for example. That'll help them show that, in a quick, shorter period of time, I do like this. But two, it also makes them more marketable as they progress and move forward. They're gaining experience. So we just wanted to illustrate how the progression of credentials and degrees coupled together could help an individual. And depending on their end game of the student, if they want to work right away, or if they have time and ability to work towards their 2-year or 4-year degree, that does make a lot of sense too for those students. But depending on where they are and the outcomes they're looking for, here's an illustration of how that kind of works when it comes to getting into a career quickly. You could start off soon at the beginning of the pathway with a short training program, eventually working your way through. And another thought and consideration too, as an individual gets into a particular industry or works with a given employer, healthcare is a great example. Our local healthcare system, they'll provide training for individuals to get more education, more certifications and learning and so forth. And so if you can get on board with an employer, maybe early on in your process of looking at getting started with your career with a certain credential, perhaps they would pay your way to finish out that 2-year or 4-year degree. So I know a lot of employers are doing that nowadays, especially in the IT world and also in the manufacturing and healthcare worlds, that they're looking to incentivize to keep folks on to continue to learn and progress. So wanted to showcase how sometimes credentials can help early on to get people jump started in their career path. So here's a fun one. Consider all options. I relate back to this particular story often, and this consideration that if I'd have known more about where I was going to go in terms of college and career planning and training, getting a degree and so forth, I may have perhaps considered a different career outlet. So I was told just go to college. I think most of us were said go to college, get a degree, figure it out. And this was 25, 30 years ago, that I didn't really have a strong support and I didn't know all my options. And so today we really want to encourage you as individuals to consider, credentials and any other programs that are out there, consider all options for those students so that they can understand. And so there's a huge paradigm shift. I love this illustration. It's been around for some time, but I want to give you a few moments just to think and look at this and perhaps react. Is there any chat or thoughts you want to share with us about this? So you begin to wonder, and of course, this thought is obviously as we share with potential students learning outcomes and where they could potentially go, it just doesn't make sense any longer to say higher education, just getting higher education is really going to help you produce higher earnings and outcomes. So there's so many individuals out there who are struggling because they've gone after a degree or program. Maybe they're going to the college or university of their choice because of the experience, and perhaps they're still paying for that because of that. But the thought is really it's a mindset shift and a paradigm shift of where people should be thinking about going to college, and really no longer it's bachelor's or bust. You have to think about the jobs that are in demand that are in our region, and of course, if you want to live and work local, that's one big consideration. But the thought is just to send a student off to a school or university and expect them to have the job skills for today may not be exactly the case. And so that's the shift we're speaking about a little bit about today as well, that many students go on, they look for opportunities to get a degree. And a lot of times they're not using that degree or they're technically overqualified because they're willing to accept a different job. I'm an example of that. I'm a guy who's been in marketing for years, but I have a background in sports management, athletic administration. Locally, that didn't pan out quite for me, at least my balance of work life and having a family. But the thought is that I'm not using my degrees towards the current job that I'm in today. And many students are being faced with that. It says that roughly 70% of high school graduates who go on to pursue a college degree, only 3 in 10 actually graduate. That's another example, a personal example that I like to share with my brother. He's got some credits. He's got a bag full of credits from Shepherd University, West Virginia University, and he does not have a degree, but he has the college debt that he's not paying off on. He had a good time at college, but he's not using his degree right now for what he could really use it for. Another thought too is that student debt has certainly surpassed credit card debt. That was some years ago. But today's number of student debt, looking at a Forbes article, is $1.7 trillion of student debt. It's roughly 45 million individuals. 1 in 4 Americans have some form of student debt. So when you think about students going off to college, getting that experience, having that ultimate fun experience potentially, is that really the best use of their time? And it's certainly the debt they're not necessarily using for the jobs of today. Here's a story that we want to share during the pandemic that we learned about. Luis Camacho Bruno, he was a student from Clark County High School that received our Barbara J. Bird Clark County Success Fund. Here's a student whose father is also in construction, and he's an individual who's working towards his engineering degree. But during the pandemic, he timed out and stopped working on his degree and quickly jumped over to some of our fast track training programs and apprenticeship for HVAC and construction project management. They took advantage of that success fund locally at Clark County, but those 2 programs, for example, are part of our Fast Forward, Fast Funding programs. They're a grant that is offered by the state of Virginia. And here's an example of a student timing out to work on getting the hard skills he could use to start working in his dad's construction business. Perhaps he can go into business on his own, or maybe go to another company or another area. But meantime, he can still go back to his engineering degree and work towards that on a long-term plan. So this is just another example of a student, finding, a way to get working in today's working environment and working towards getting ultimately that check and that pay before really getting that degree done. So it's a great example we like to share about how locally that's working for students. Another big part of our region too, and I want to share some data. I'm a big data guy, and many of those who know me can really appreciate why we dive into data. But we did a study a few years ago with a former superintendent, Pam McInnes, about finding the 7s in K-12. And some of you, if you really want to dive into the report, I'm happy to share it and some of the findings locally. And since then, I think our school systems have done a tremendous job to help students figure out those opportunities and careers. And there's a lot of, to me, it seems a lot more requests and engagement with the college as well with other partners in our region to help educate all the different opportunities out there. But this report really was looking at the time, looking at how school systems are doing it and how programs were being referred to individuals. But the premise was that many divisions were lacking the ability to help push these middle skills careers around the 7s. Students weren't really aware of those opportunities, and a lot of it was based on outdated societal stigmas. And certainly one of the facts and thoughts that we felt like that many students leaned on the family, friends, coworkers, and staff, and certainly coaches and teachers in the school systems to rely on that advice. Where do I go? What do I do? What are my next steps? Coach, teacher, whoever there might be speaking to that student. And so we felt like the reason for the study, we felt like many of those influencers, the educators, didn't know all of the opportunity at the time. And it still seems like it today, but I think we're getting better at it because of the new profile for Virginia graduate. There's more career exploration and opportunities, even in the elementary school levels as well. So just the opportunities there have changed since that study. But I want to share some of the findings that the study showed. It did at the time, it did do a comparison between like the data of 2015, 2016, and still shows this, but I went and revisit the data locally. The Virginia Department of Education does a look at high school graduates who moved on to institution of higher education. And they look at the entire state numbers, but also they look at the local counties as well in Virginia. And so in comparison to 2018 and 2019, they look at a 16-month window. So 2021 will be data coming in the future, but it shows how many students are going to college, any higher institution of education, as well as looking at the two-year programs. And really the big point of this is that two-year colleges like Lord Fairfax provide a lot of the middle skills training that Virginia businesses need. And so you can see the shift and differences of about 40 to 50% in some cases who are going on. They're avoiding the two-year schools and the opportunity to get middle skills learning. So when you look at your school division, potentially where students are thinking about going to school, there's even a lopsided portion of that where many are not going on at all, but also they're going on to other institutions and not necessarily locally. And so if you look at the net gain loss between 2018 and 2019, they're still steadily going up in terms of higher education enrollments. But when it comes down to the two-year, there is a decline. Last year, we also learned during the pandemic, there was a huge shift in enrollment into universities and for-profit institutions. There actually was a 13% increase. But meanwhile, the community college system as a whole dropped about 23% enrollment last year during the pandemic. So you have to begin to wonder, all those middle skills careers that are out there, the sevens, those filling those pipelines, where are those students going? So we're missing out on opportunity. Additionally, a lot of the data too, if you flip it a little bit and look at it based on the school division, many students are entering the workforce potentially as unskilled workers. And so you have to think about many of them getting into the workforce with no idea where they want to go, what they want to do. Are they getting into retail, hospitality, food service, whatever it might be? Many of them are going into the workforce as potentially unskilled. However, a lot of students are getting some credentials and learning at their high school before they graduate. But the thought is, how many more are not? And what are they doing at this time? So lastly, we just want to kind of wrap up and share a little bit about the study, and really why we're talking with you today is that students need more information and tools and help and resources to help them understand. Additionally, there's so much of the stereotypical misconceptions, perceptions about lack of information and information that's out there about getting into schools and colleges, because it's the resources and things that maybe that are lacking in some cases. But we at the college, we've pulled some things together, and we wanted to kind of showcase some of those opportunities for you to share with potential students. And that's our next point and part of this conversation. So we have a number of recommendations and resources laid on to, and certainly here are a few steps to get started.
So when we're talking with individuals about, what they want to do with their lives, which I feel like is the most loaded question in the world, because I've met people who are 60 and they're like, I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. We always talk about doing some self-exploration. So one of those things is just going ahead and analyzing the talents that they already have, the skills that they already have, and then deciding, okay, well, I really enjoy working with people. I really enjoy working with my hands. I really love video games, whatever the case may be. And then deciding, where can I use those skills for a career? We talk about developing a career plan, which a lot of people kind of snarl their nose up at because it sounds really boring, which I totally understand. So for me, it's more about just talking with people and having them take a career assessment of some kind. And we're going to showcase one of the ones we have on our website here in a minute. But the great thing about it, the career assessment that we're going to show you, is that it provides a lot of information. So not only does it provide like the categories that people would most be like their skills and their interests most align with, but also talks about different career opportunities. And they're realistic, which is really nice. And it shows like the medium wage for our area, and you know the steps that they would need to pursue that career. I remember when I was in high school, I took a career assessment and it told me that I should be a lyricist, which because I like music and I like to write. And even then I was like, okay, get real. Like how many people actually grow up and get to do that? So it's like, you know, I just get to kind of do that stuff on the side. That's like what other skills and knowledge and, you know, things that I like to do could I transform into a career? You can go ahead and flip to the next slide, guys, sorry. So, you know, when I talk to people about their careers, I'm like, listen, I am never one, I don't like being a dream crusher, right? I think that people should pursue their passions. You know, they say if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But realistically, like everybody needs to make money. So when someone is planning their future, it's okay, you may not be doing, you know, I met someone one time, for example, he was like, the only thing I like to do is play video games and that's what I want to get paid to do. And I was like, all right, that's cute. You know, call me in 20 years and let me know if that actually happened. But otherwise, you know, let's look at what else you might be interested in. They're like, oh, well, you know, I really enjoy taking apart computer systems and fixing hardware. So I'm like, well, maybe you would be great for a career in IT, you know, starting out as like a help desk technician. They really didn't like interacting with a lot of people. They kind of preferred to stay behind the scenes, and that is actually something they ended up pursuing. So if you want to go ahead and pull up the website, yes. We have our online career coach, which has all kinds of stuff. It has a resume builder, talks about different careers. We have an online job board on there, but the one thing we're going to show you today is our career assessment. And you're good. The career assessment on our website has the opportunity to do 6 questions, 30 questions, or 60. I typically recommend, I mean, always I push someone to do the 60. For some people, that's too much. So I try to have most people do 30. It gives them pretty good results. For the purpose of today, I'm not going to make you guys sit through listening to me rattle on 60 questions. We're only going to do the 6, but it does give us some great information. Go ahead. So when someone is taking this, we don't want them to worry about if they have enough education or training, and we don't want them to worry about how much money they would make. And we don't want them to take a lot of time to think about their answers, because if you think too hard, you may talk yourself out of things. So the first question, would you like to work hands-on with objects, machines, tools, plants, or animals, work and play outside, use your physical or athletic abilities? Let's disagree. Would you like to observe, learn, analyze, evaluate, or solve problems, question and explore physical, biological, or cultural happenings? Agree. Would you like to express yourself, excuse me, creatively, use imagination or intuition? Feel free to be inventive without limits. Strongly disagree. Would you like to inform, enlighten, help, teach, counsel, or cure people? Use your skills with words to serve people? Strongly disagree. You would like to influence, persuade, lead, or manage, reach your personal or organizational goals? Disagree. You would like to work with facts, numbers, and details, follow directions to organize, plan, and complete a project or task? Strongly agree.
Strongly agree.
Yes. All right, so just with answering those 6 questions, it gives us our top 3 career traits. And it kind of talks a little bit about what types of people. So I don't know, you guys have probably taken like a Myers-Briggs test. At some point, I'm sure everyone's taken some sort of personality assessment. This goes a little bit deeper than that in terms of work. So it talks about the top 3 career traits, and people can actually download their results or save it. Or if they're like, you know what, this is bogus, this doesn't sound like me at all, they could always retake the assessment as well. If you scroll down a little bit, it'll show you your top career matches. So for us, it was 100% match in information technology. And if we click on that, it'll show us some jobs that we may be suited for. So program and software development, let's do that one. We were talking about that one earlier. So these are some jobs that are in demand, and it gives us some median salaries. Now, people may see that and they get really excited, right? Like nobody's going to start out making $110,000 a year. And if they do, then I apparently need to switch career fields. But it's like, okay, so you're into doing software development. That's great. So we have a new developer program that is starting soon. And, but to start, before someone starts that, they would maybe take like our CompTIA fundamentals course to get them started in the IT field. And it also, oh, I forgot about that. It also shows the different programs that we have available at Lord Fairfax that may relate to that job. It also shows annual job openings, median salaries, and again, it's realistic. So it's really great. Oh, live job postings. There's all kinds of fun stuff on this website. We really recommend, you know, for people to get on there and just kind of play around. It's just a really great way to kind of get people thinking. It's a really good jumping off point. You could change the region and see the different jobs. It's a really nice system. And actually, I encourage people to take a career assessment every few years themselves, even if they're, you know, happy in their jobs, just to see if their interests have changed. Because I feel like we change and we grow as we get older. Guys, is there anything else you wanted to say about the software?
Yeah, I think as students are looking at this particular software, we love that it does reflect a lot of the programs to get you there. So depending on the assessment results and where that student is and their interests, that it does produce the program, as Julie mentioned, but also the live job opportunities. So I think many students are always thinking, you know, what are the local jobs in our area, and how do I even begin to think about, consider some of them? That these jobs here will post right away when you're looking at some of these programs aligned with them. So the live job posting piece, you know, as they're related, in a lot of cases, depending on the area and how you select it, may not show a job posting right away. It's just basically the market. So I think the big key in the presentation part of this as well too is that if students can align their interests and their abilities with some of these in-demand career options locally, it's a win-win for everybody. Not only just the student. A lot of cases, there's not a lot of time and investment to turn around to go into some of these careers, but it's helping local employers find the job pool they desperately need. And so we hear this so many times that they're always looking for IT specialists, or you know, in the manufacturing world, they're looking at industrial technicians who can troubleshoot, maintain, and operate a lot of the equipment on the back end. There's so much cool stuff that's out there that families and individuals don't realize what's here local. But there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here in this region. Many kids don't want to stay local. They end up wanting to just get out of the household and leave the nest as fast as they can. But the thought is that, you know, to do themselves a service, and as well as the region, there's a lot of local opportunity here that are in demand. In a lot of cases, it doesn't take much training or education to get into the door with some of these key employers. So this is a great resource and tool to use.
I've seen a lot of career assessments in my day, and this one's pretty good. This one's really nice.
So if you'd like to, you can visit our website, lfcc.edu/jobs, or if you have your phone, you can scan the QR code in the upper hand corner there.
All right. So we also have, you know, if you've never been on our website, I highly encourage you to go there. We have so much information. I'm still fairly new to Workforce Solutions. I just started at the end of November of 2020. And I still feel like every day I'm finding something new on the website. So we have, under our About section, we have a community partner resources page, and it's a great kind of jumping off point to get you to lots of different great information. So there's our online career coach. They did a Careers in Demand video series, which Guy can probably speak to more because I wasn't here for that. It also talks about some of our funding options. We're talking about the paradigm shift and, more students going into credentialing programs. And I think a huge reason that this is becoming more accessible is the fact that the state especially is starting to invest in credential programs, where just a few years ago, there was like no funding for credential programs. It was all about Pell funding, which we're not eligible for. So our Fast Forward programs, for example, for those who don't know, not all of our programs are Fast Forward, but quite a few of them are. For state of Virginia residents, it covers 2/3 of the cost of a class, simply for being a state of Virginia resident. So that's really great. It's made classes really accessible. And then we also have lots of other funding options. We're just launching our new G3 program, which is helping to pay for pathways. So it can be used for both credential programs and credit side programs, which is kind of unheard of, I think. You can also always view our current course catalog, which is fantastic. If you don't receive our catalog in the mail, I encourage you to go on our website and look at it. Our marketing team really spends a lot of time updating it. It's interactive, it's fantastic. We have lots of different information sessions that we provide. A lot of them are online. So healthcare, IT, PMP, those are all online. And then we are doing trades information sessions in person. So people can come and interact with our program managers, ask questions, see the classrooms, and sometimes they get to play on the simulators, which is a lot of fun. We also have a corporate training side. So if you're interested in that, I highly encourage you to seek that out. And then, of course, talking about our fast track program.
So if you do want to get to that page, quick redirect is lfccworkforce.com/CP for community partners. And we have our QR code there you can use to get to the page quickly too, if you want to share it with somebody that you think would like to take advantage of the site. So really, I guess at this time, it's kind of opening it. I know there's a few comments and chats about programs and having students recognized, but what kind of questions do you have from your side of things? What are you seeing with students? Any feedback or thoughts from today's presentation?
Okay, so we have a question in the chat. Does the college success skills course at LFCC also help prepare students for the workforce solutions classes? I don't think so, right, Guy?
I'm not particularly familiar with that success skills course. Is that the
I think she means SDV.
SDV?
Mm-hmm.
It's very different. I mean, a lot of the programs we offer in workforce solutions, you could be totally fresh or new to that industry, having no skills at all, and could jumpstart your career with some of the training programs we have. So the college success skills course, that helps individuals probably get an overview, especially if you're a fresh student coming out of high school and you're not quite sure where to go and where to get started. I think that helps a lot of them, since they're, the traditionals of college student age, they're not quite sure what they want, and maybe perhaps they're still undecided about the degree or major they're going after. But as far as just any student preparation that we have, most of our courses within Workforce Solutions, the non-credit options, the professional development courses we offer, in most cases, there's no real application. There might be a couple of prerequisites depending on the program, but there's no real assessments per se that gauge where that student might be. So the thought to get started, a lot of our courses, you can be totally new and fresh to an industry and really start right away.
I also just want to add to that like our instructors, because our classes are small, they're able to be really, they get really close with our students. So if an instructor sees that a student is struggling, like they're not just going to let them struggle. They're going to be like, hey, I noticed you're not doing so great. So it may be that the instructor contacts me or the program manager and says, hey, Bob is struggling with taking tests. Is there anything that we can do? And then, we can refer them, like if they need tutoring or they need some help with like study skills, whatever the case may be. But there's no like class that they take to help prepare them for, I guess, college life, because it is so different with the workforce program.
So we have a great question, Kathy, about financial assistance available for high school students and high school graduates. The current legislation is for fast forward. It's actually in General Assembly that it's always going to be coming back for a lot of our non-credit programs. High school students can enroll in some of those programs, assuming they are about to graduate or are in their path to graduate. And there's some official language that has not really been identified or mapped out yet. But traditionally, any student from high school can take our courses. It's whether or not they'll be eligible to receive some of that fast forward grant funding. So that is the only stipulation. You typically have to be either a senior about to graduate, and I think in most cases, they've already graduated to get into some of the programs that include fast forward funding. However, we've had individuals who have been 15, 16, 14 getting into some of our courses because they're looking for some of those skills. And so they, in some cases, they pay out of pocket, but usually it's not a lot of cost. So for example, getting into our basic welding course, or some of the, we've had some trade students get into our HVAC and electrical programs. On the flip side, depending on the age of the student, a lot of times if they do have a personal pay, in other words, they pay out of pocket directly for a course, they may need to be 18 regardless because of the employer who wants to hire them, but also the credential they have to eventually achieve. So the testing requirements, for example, in healthcare, requires that the student is an NHA, National Healthcare Association, has to be 18 years of age or older. So there's some of those examples, and sometimes it's the program specifically that they have to look into, but certainly high school students can jumpstart in a lot of these programs. And we also, for example, have had cohorts of high school students. For example, at Fauquier County, we've had high school cohorts in our heavy equipment operator program, and the county itself footed the bill for the admission and tuition for those students for that course. So there's some partnership opportunities that are out there. We have worked with CTE departments before in the past, and we continue to do that. We have great partnerships with like the city of Winchester, for example. They have their new Shahade Innovation Center that's there in Winchester. So there's a lot of those activities going on. There's activities also going on in Page County. And so there's more things we're open to, just depending on the student and what program they get into.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, and to go along with Britt asked a question about it being feasible for students to enroll in our programs before they graduate high school. Definitely, it all depends on the student, but because our classes are, 1 or 2 days a week for a few hours, maybe 3, they're a lot more feasible for students to attend. A big one that I've seen recently is dental assisting. We've had quite a few high school students who are going to be seniors this year who are going to start a dental assisting program, which is really interesting to me. So it definitely is feasible for students to enter into workforce solutions programs. We do offer some programs that are completely online. We have a partnership with a couple of different like third-party partners. One of them, the only one I can think of right now, is World Education Online, and they offer a whole slew of different types of programs, everything from like ophthalmic assistant to podcasting. But in terms of, like our fast forward programs, for example, our patient services representative program right now is completely online. So it just really kind of depends on what the student wants to do. If it's like our trades programs they can't be online, right? Because people need to get the hands-on training. But, because of the pandemic, I will say that we're doing a lot more stuff online. So again, it just kind of depends on what they're interested in. Let's see. We have career coaches in our height. So yes, I do connect with them. I send them, they are now receiving bunches of our course catalogs automatically in the mail, delivered right to the schools. So I have not worked with all of them yet. I will say quite a few have connected with me and sent students our way, but I cannot speak to your specific school. Okay, interesting. There's some free credential programs before students graduate. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a great point about Michelle and Frederick County, that a lot of cases there are credential programs in the high school itself. And in some cases too, there are next steps to getting additional credentials or adding on to the portfolio of that student. Healthcare is a great example. If you get in your, for example, your nurse aid, and if you go remember the nursing career pathway, nurse aid is kind of the lower entry level healthcare position, but a lot of nurse aides eventually move up to medical assisting or patient care representative or become a medical scribe. So that could be a great transition of getting their first initial credential in high school and then getting on an additional credential with the college. Electrical programs are also another great example. We're working with Page County school systems about the current technical trade students getting, I guess, entry level credentials in HVAC and electrical, I believe. And they're also looking at ways to jumpstart into our level 2 or level 3 apprenticeship programs of apprenticeship with the college itself. So depending on where that student is, many of them are taking advantage of that career training early on, which is awesome because they get a feel for whether or not they like that particular industry, but also they can catapult into some other trainings to further advance themselves down that career path. So that's a great example there, Shelley.
And Guy, can I piggyback off of that just really quickly? Speaking in particular to the IT field, I am leading a group effort for a group called the Workforce Initiative Board, and we are actually working right now to identify what those pathways are between high school to Lord Fairfax to 2 and 4 year degrees, and we do have quite a few pathways already in place. So students can take, for example, like an IT fundamentals in CompTIA or a CompTIA A plus certification course in high school. Then they can actually come through workforce and obtain their CompTIA network and security certifications. From there, our credit for prior learning allows students to take all of those credentials and transfer them in for credit towards a 2 year degree. And so they could essentially transition into the credit degree program and only have to take courses for 2 or 3 semesters and then come out with a degree. So we do have those pathways in place, and we are working on those pathways for other areas, such as manufacturing and healthcare.
So, Shelley, I had a quick question about the heavy equipment operator program. That is, that was something specifically Fauquier County and Prince William County Public Schools worked together to provide high school students. And at one point prior to the pandemic, we were working with Frederick County about considering offering some of those programs specifically for Frederick County Public School students. However, obviously the students, if they were willing and able to and wanted to jumpstart some of those programs sooner, they could, potentially not receiving the fast forward funding. But sometimes, in some cases, the school systems, for example, Fauquier County, foot the bill for some of those students to move forward. But Frederick County would be up to them, and we'd be happy to work with them if you have a contact with their CTE department or whoever else would want to entertain that idea. I guess the question too, and sometimes the high school students, they are getting some great outcomes, but we're finding some of the high school students are quite ready too for some of the training programs initially. So there's a little bit more to talk about that, but having those right students ready for careers and starting to work right away is one thing, but many of them do know what they want. And so that's a great thing to start that conversation. Awesome. That sounds great. So any other general questions? We have about 5 more minutes left. Any questions or thoughts? How can we best engage anybody at your school system? Is there any barriers that your students are facing? Yes, we do have career coaches on site at all the schools that speak to all education and training options that are out there in our region and other areas in the state and outside of the state too. But any barriers or issues that you're still facing, are you still hearing parents and family talk about careers and where they want to go, and perhaps there's some opportunity? Because from a marketing perspective, we're always trying to figure out ways to best educate the parents and certainly the students. So any ideas, thoughts about the barriers students are still facing, and as well as those societal stigmas that are still out there? Yeah, that is a tough challenge too, because we're trying to market to the students who are making career decisions every other week. It seems some of the conversations we've had with staff and the school systems, that one week a student is thinking about this, and the next week they're thinking about what they're doing for the weekend. They're just always all over the place. But the parents, family members are one of the bigger next influencers. But certainly you as educators, as you are faced with students day to day, that you have that ultimate impact. And so hopefully, more importantly, I think a lot of this presentation was around the teaching staff that's out there. And I specifically speak to my wife, who got her teaching degree, and that's the only path she particularly knew, because that's how she got to where she is as a professional today. So the thought process is that many may not know about those options, but I know a lot has changed for learning and understanding as a professional within your specific area, that there's really a lot more options. And so you as teachers, staff members, coaches, you have a direct influence with a lot of the students and sharing really the opportunities that are locally. But the big picture too, as well, is that many students may say they're going on to a college or university, and if they don't have a particular career path in mind, perhaps you can intervene and suggest ideas of where to go, how to potentially consider careers locally if they're thinking about living and working locally. So we do want to thank you for your time and effort. Look, if there's one more. Yeah. Oh, gracious. I'm fighting that with my sixth grader right now, soon to be seventh grader. Social media influencers and Mr. Beast and all these different guys are out there. I just want to be a YouTube guy. I'm not sure that's the greatest career path decision, but you never know. How do you fight that? So a question about contact information. So if you do have questions and thoughts in the time in the future moving forward, please reach out to Julia. She can help you with students who are looking for direction and need advice or next steps. She's our awesome workforce coach. And I'm the marketing guy, so I'm always thinking about ways to better connect with students as well as family members and influencers like yourself. So if there's any resources that you're looking for and opportunities you'd like to share and suggest, please reach out to us and we can help you the best we can. And so as we wrap up, we do want to thank everyone for the time and effort, and appreciate for everyone tuning in. And please reach out if you have any questions or any additional thoughts. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, guys.
And Guy and Julia, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to put a link in the chat. If everyone could take a moment and just fill out the evaluation form, let us know your thoughts or any feedback. We greatly appreciate it. And I hope everyone enjoys their summer. Have a great rest of your day.